Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, THI publisher Andrew Jones. And AJ here for yet another episode of our off-season UNC football ISO series. And in this one, we're going to be focusing on running back British Brooks, who announced, months ago that he was going to return for another year after his senior season ended in 2021, going to return for another year at North Carolina, which I think is huge news for the Tar Heels. And we'll get into talking a little bit more about why here in a second. Before we dive into that, though, AJ, I want to give a quick shout out to TarHeelIllustrated.com. You see written across right there, guys, for as little as $8.33 a month, you can sign up to be a premium subscriber on our website. All you got to do, just click on the description below. You'll find a link. It'll take you right over there. And guys, with this premium content, what you get is you get access to our premium message boards. You get access to premium content. A lot of that has to do with recruiting. There's so much recruiting stuff that we do. The only way you can access it, the only way you can see it is if you're a premium member. So if you want to get a little bit more than you see just on this YouTube channel or just on the free content you see on our website, you got to sign up to be a premium member. And I really encourage you guys to do so because there's a ton of perks that come with that. So just click the link in the description. Head on over there and sign up. Just $8.33 a month at TarHeelIllustrated.com, where you can be an insider too. Okay, AJ, enough of the spiel on that one. Let's dive into British Brooks, because British is an interesting one in a lot of ways, because he's a guy that's been at Carolina for a few years now. He's a guy that's been around the program, with his senior season being last year, appeared in 11 games at running back and on special teams, actually named the special teams MVP and special teams captain for the second year in a row. So he's been a guy that's used heavily, has been a really successful guy on special teams for the Tar Heels. Averaged 9.5 rushing yards per attempt with 295 yards on 31 carries and 4 touchdowns last year. Now, Brooks is an interesting case. And what I mean by that is I'm going to take you guys back to the state game. I know you guys don't want to relive that, but we got to relive it real quick. I know they don't want to. I was on the field after that game. I was taking photos. I know Carolina fans don't want to relive that game. Brooks kind of
what? They should be okay with it, because I think a lot was learned. Another layer of the knowledge Mac learned last year. Last year was take a few steps backward, take a lot more forward. I think some of the adjustments that have been made in the program were born in part out of that game. There were others too.
Oh yeah.
But that was, if you need 6 nails in a coffin, that was the 5th nail that night.
Yeah. It was a huge slap.
And the result is, as I get 400 phone calls here, the result was they made some significant changes.
Yeah. Significant changes. So Brooks kind of comes in that game out of nowhere after. I mean, he played during the season, but he wasn't a guy that was their starting running back for any shape of the imagination. Comes in, runs for 124 rushing yards on 15 carries. I remember standing on the sidelines of that game and being like, where's this been? Like, why is he just now getting thrown into the fire? It's kind of the last regular season game of the year. And you're like, you know what? Let's throw British Brooks in there. And he has this monster game against a good, let's not make any mistakes about it. It's a good NC State defense last year. Made him look very average on the ground with those 15 carries. So that's what I mean is he's an interesting case. He's a guy that's been around the program. You haven't really heard much out of him besides on special teams. And I know when you look back even further with Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, he was never going to get in front of those guys, both in the league right now. So maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe if those guys aren't in the program, he gets a little more playing time early. But he's just been a guy that really didn't burst onto the scene until his senior year at NC State. I think that's when a lot of Carolina fans were like, okay, maybe this British Brooks guy's got something. So I think that's why it was huge news when he announced that he was going to come back. When you look at some of the inexperience and some of the youth that just dominates a talented running back room, but a running back room that's just very, very young. So I think having him back is important for a lot of reasons. But AJ, hit on last year before we look ahead, as we always do in these, because like I said, just the way he was kind of thrown in and looked so good against NC State, I think a lot of Carolina fans were like, well, why didn't we do this 10 games ago? You know what I mean? Give him a shot. It was an interesting situation in that respect.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20 vision.
Yes, it is. Yep.
So he had 10 rushing yards going into the Wofford game, which was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. I don't think this is a criticism of the staff. I don't think that they knew that he was that capable. Yeah. He hadn't shown it. You got to show it for a staff to know. I mean, they needed guys. They needed somebody else to complement Ty Chandler. DJ Jones is a nice talent. They would love for him to be healthy and be one of those guys, but he wasn't always healthy. Like Caleb Hood, he had opportunities. He got hurt kind of early. I think he would have at least been a short yardage kind of guy, but he got hurt and it didn't play much the last half of the season. So they kind of struggled in that area. Sam was their de facto second runner and at times their first runner. And I think there were issues that were born out of that as well. Even though the numbers look great, there were some issues that were born out of that. So with British, I think British surprised them. I think I don't think the staff was as surprised as the fans. The fans tend to think, well, what the heck's wrong with these guys? Why did they put him out there before? Well, if they would have known that he was going to be rolling off 40-yarders against the Wolfpack and 63-yarders against the Gamecocks, he would have been on the field, right? So also, you got to wonder how many reps he got in practice. He was a special teams maestro, if you will. He's a very good special teams player, and he'll be that again this coming season. But sometimes guys you put them in a game and something changes and they suddenly rise to another level. Doesn't mean they're bad practice players. It just means that sometimes guys show up when they have an opportunity to show up. He had a touchdown against Georgia State last year and ran tight. He's a pretty strong guy.
Yeah, he's big.
And he needed some tight running. I remember thinking, he kind of went off the tackle real nicely there. And I think that's what this comes down to. Maybe British isn't going to wow you when you're running drills, but he's a really smart guy. So he's a guy that has pretty good vision and he cuts well and he reads his blockers well. And he's got really good instincts with timing and stuff like that. I remember when they brought him in, Jacob, in fact, the news came out in the summer of 2018, I think it was, before Larry's last year. And he's from Gastonia. And Richard Williams, phenomenal sports writer for the Gastonia Gazette for years and years and years. Really good guy. I remember him asking Larry at the ACC kickoff. This was the day that Larry stuck his foot in his mouth. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. That was the beginning of the end for Larry. Richard Williams asked him about British. And everyone else was like, yeah, whatever. And he asked him, is he going to be on scholarship? And Larry said yes. But he wasn't on scholarship. And he finally got on scholarship at Carolina. But Larry talked about, we believe that this kid might be a diamond in the rough. And Larry was really good at finding those guys. Really good at they had several walk-ons went into the NFL that Larry brought in.
Mac
so he was
one to name,
absolutely. So Cole Holcomb.
Yep.
Cole Holcomb's another
shout. Good shout. Yep.
Absolutely. So love Cole Holcomb. Fun guy to cover him. Mac was an interesting guy as well. But I think that, Larry saw something and other coaches maybe didn't, but you got to trust Larry's eyes, at least in that respect. Right. So we come 4 years later, and he's the number one back. They scaled back his reps in spring practice to give the other guys more reps, because they have a large group there they're trying to sort out. They're trying to figure out, RB2, RB3. They want to have 3 guys there. And they did eventually determine that DJ Jones is the second guy, provided he stays healthy. And the third battle is up in the air between Petaway and Elijah Green, who really came on. And we'll see what Omarion Hampton does in fall camp once he shows up. But I think British gave them the comfort of at least knowing that he's reliable. I don't know if he's going to be rolling off 40-yard runs every week. I don't know if he's going to be the guy in the moving forward that he was against State and against South Carolina. But I think the reliability factor, I think that they know that there's a guy that can get the ball 12 times a game and get you something every once in a while. Mm-hmm. I think that will help them game plan in the offseason as they look ahead to the fall.
I think he's an important leader. Last thing we'll hit on real quick for that group too, and probably for the offense as a whole, because he's a guy that's been around the program, comes in as a walk-on, earns a scholarship, special teams MVP, two seasons in a row. A guy that just stepped up and said, okay, I'm going to make a way and find a way. And then he gets an opportunity against State. He gets an opportunity against Wofford the week before, rushed 7 times for 89 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And then he comes in against State when they're just looking for somebody to go pick up some yards on the ground and blows up with 124 yards on 15 carries. You got to give a guy like that credit. I know you can say, well, the coaching staff should have put him earlier, but he's a prime example of a guy being given an opportunity, which I think there was a number of Tar Heels last year who were given different opportunities in different rooms, who maybe didn't step up and didn't really cement their spot. British Brooks comes in, does it in one game, looks spectacular, coming back for another year. Now he's the number one back going into fall camp. So got to give him major credit, but I think his leadership ability and what he can bring to that room that is just so stacked with talent, but is just so extremely young at the same time. And for an offense that's going to have a new quarterback, a guy that's going to have to step up as a leader in a relatively young offense in different positions, I think his leadership can be very, very important for not only that room, but for the offense and maybe for the team as a whole.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a guy who's got a great story and is effective, he's not just a great story, but he's a player too. I think that always helps your team. When you have a self-made guy, for lack of a better term, and British clearly is, I think that helps your team, because as they bring in more and more of these kids with a bunch of stars next to their names, if they're playing behind a guy that had none, the coaches can use that. That's a tool for them to inspire not just the guys in his room, but the guys anywhere on the roster. They just went through that with Javonte. Mm-hmm. Javonte didn't have any stars until he committed to Carolina. And Dana kind of, said, y'all got to give this kid some stars. And they did. And look he's in the NFL. Okay. I have no idea what British's future in the sport is, but he's got a really good story now. He's a self-made guy right now. And I think he's also somebody that when he walks through the Keenan Football Center, he commands a lot of respect because the dudes know that he's got the goods. He's one of those guys, if you remember back when you were in college, Jacob, everybody knew somebody or they had that one guy in their group that you just kind of knew that guy was going to be successful.
Yeah, you just kind of knew.
Like that guy's gonna marry up. He's gonna make a lot of cash. He's gonna enjoy what he does. He's gonna have a great life because he's just gonna be successful. I think that when the younger guys in the Carolina football program are around British Brooks, whether they process it that way or not, they kind of view him as one of those kind of guys. So if you have a guy like that is also your starter and is also producing, that just makes everybody else better because culture is so vitally important. How many times have we heard this spring Mac Brown talk about, well, last year's team didn't always have it. Last year's team didn't bring it some nights. The Georgia Tech game was an absolute disgrace, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. It's because they didn't have great leadership. They didn't have great internal culture. When the face of your program are guys like British Brooks, when the outspoken ones in that room are guys like British Brooks, you have a better chance of having good culture across the board. So his value goes way beyond what he does on special teams and how many carries and touchdowns he's going to score.
Yeah, definitely. He's a guy that's earned it since he's been there, and we'll see. I'm very, very interested to see what kind of year he has this season for North Carolina. Is definitely be a guy that I'm sure a lot of Carolina fans are kind of feeling the same way about as well, which is kind of weird to say about a guy that's been around the program for as long as he has. But, credit to Brooks.
College football is a beautiful thing because opportunity's there. If you stick around, opportunity finds you he's going to find you eventually.
Yeah.
And you got to make the most of it. It's also a wonderful sport where there are a boatload of 4-star guys that don't do anything. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of guys like British Brooks and Javonte Williams who do something. North Carolina's had them in their program. Think of the number of 4-star kids that didn't pan out the last 10 years. And then think of the dudes like Matt Collins, like Cole Holcomb, like Jeff Schottmer, like Javonte Williams, like British Brooks that have. Mm-hmm. That's what's so beautiful about college. That's why don't marry yourself to star rankings, guys.
No.
Because don't worry if Mac offers a 3-star kid from Texas and he's got other offers that don't impress you, don't worry about it. You should trust what they're saying. Because they know this stuff. And guys like, Larry knew the diamonds in the rough. Larry Fedora was damn good at that. And British Brooks was one of those guys. So he's at Carolina getting an opportunity under Mac Brown, but because a dude who had that kind of vision saw it and brought him in. And to British's credit, he stuck it out. And he's made something out of it, out of the opportunity.
Took advantage of his opportunity, and that's what's got him to here. So good place to wrap this one up, AJ. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Again, make sure you guys head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Sign up for just $8.33 a month. Come join the THI family where you can be an insider too. Again, all you got to do is click the link in the description, take you right over to our website, just click the sign up button, and get started on that. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. So, every single time we upload, we do upload a ton of videos, even in the off season as well. So make sure you hit that. So if you want to know as soon as our videos come out, I think we're rolling out like one a day in the off season so far, which is pretty impressive, even sometimes more than that. So trying to keep that going throughout the off season as well. Again, I've been Jacob. He's been Andrew. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.